It is 9 o'clock. We will call to order the August 27th, 2024 Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners Board Meeting. Our first item, those that are able, please join us with the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 2 is the agenda review. Mr. Meyer, please.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
I'll move the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. The agenda review is approved as it is printed and distributed. Item number 3 is Representative Warren Olson. We'll maybe step back from that and add him in if he is able to join us this morning. He had indicated would like to visit a little bit as representative in part of Blue Earth County. So we will go not seeing Warren. We haven't not heard from him just lately, have we? Hasn't texted me back yet either. We will skip that and come back to that if need be and go to item number 4 on the agenda, tab number 1 in the board book. Bob, would you like to get us started on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that. Just want to maybe run through the memo a little bit and through some of the options. And so as the board is aware that since the incident on June 24th, our county staff have been assessing the condition and safety of the County Road 9 bridge as well as the Rapidan Dam. Staff do continue to work with partner agencies from FEMA, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Minnesota Department of Transportation, as well as the DNR. I've provided some history of the dam since 1970 when Blue Earth County agreed to take ownership of the property. You know, we did have to be involved in reestablishing hydroelectric production at the dam after we acquired the property, and so that hydroelectric power was reestablished in 1984. Since then, we've had a number of repairs that have been required, including in 2002, 2010, and 2017. The dam again was damaged by severe flooding in 2019 and 2020. The 2020 ice dam damaged the powerhouse, and hydroelectric power generation ceased at that point. The board is aware that the county has conducted 2 feasibility studies that were commissioned in 2021. One study was on the potential repair of the dam. The other was on the removal of the dam. The repair estimate at that time was $15 million. The removal cost was $82 million, which also included costs related to replacing the County Road 9 bridge. In 2022, the county did conduct a public outreach campaign and received feedback. As part of that project, we did look at some of the revenue generated by the dam and other revenues that were received, as well as expenses incurred. That analysis showed that the county between 1999 and 2022 spent over $500,000 more than it received in either hydroelectric revenue or financial assistance from other levels of government. In 2023, the board did instruct staff to seek the license surrender through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. That application for license surrender was submitted in April of 2023, but as of this point, that surrender process has not been completed. This spring, the county did participate with FERC on an annual dam safety inspection where the dam was found to be in overall satisfactory condition. And then in June, we obviously had the incident with the water overtopping the dam and cutting a new channel. Since that has occurred, we've had a number of board work sessions where the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, MnDOT, and FEMA through the Homeland Security and Emergency Management Office at the state has provided the board and the community with information on various supports and options that are available to the county relative to both the bridge and the dam. Given that the information collected and continues to be collected actually since this information was put together, we continue to have conversations with those partner organizations. We have prepared some information for the board's consideration today. And I broke those considerations down into three categories related to the bridge, to the dam, and to river restoration, because river restoration will be impacted by what decisions are made with the bridge and the dam. I did include then 9 different options broken down into those three categories, and I can quickly walk through those options. This is not intended to be a comprehensive list of options, but it seemed to be the options that are most relevant. And so the first one really is removal and replacement of the County Road 9 bridge. I will say that our consulting engineers have indicated the bridge is not safe for travel, and they do recommend removal. So that's why we have a relatively limited list of options for the bridge, because it's not viewed as viable to be repaired. So first one is removal and replacement of the bridge. The second option is just remove the bridge without replacement. In terms of the dam, number 3 on the list really is about working with FEMA to reestablish the pre-disaster condition. So it would be working on restoring the west embankment, the west dam abutment, and reestablishing the river channel so that water would flow over or through the dam again. The fourth option is to work with FEMA on alternate or alternative procedure projects, which could include removal of the Rapidan Dam, and probably would include removal. The alternate and alternative procedures was information that Homeland Security Emergency Management shared with the board on August 13th, so that you folks have some understanding of what to me is kind of complicated wording, but it is basically taking the costs of bringing the dam and the area back to pre-disaster conditions, using that money in alternative ways. As a part of that alternative projects, it does under the FEMA rules require that the dam would have to be secured or removed. And so that's an important consideration as you get into those alternate and alternative projects category. Number 5 then talks about reestablishing the river channel to a pre-disaster condition, but working with the Minnesota DNR on a possible dam replacement. We don't know if the DNR would really support replacement of a dam, so that's a little bit of an unknown in that particular option, but it is an option for consideration. Number 6 then is working with FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers to leave the river channel the way it currently has reestablished itself, but protect the banks and leave the dam in its current condition while protecting the county from any liability concerns that might exist with the dam staying as is. 7 gets into the river restoration options. This number 7 really is about bringing the river back to the pre-disaster state, where reestablishing the old river channel, returning water flow through the dam, and seeking then assistance on any other river restoration efforts that might be needed through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. 8 is really working with the Corps of Engineers to restore the river in the previous river channel after removing the dam. So number 8 would really paint a picture of the dam is removed, but reestablishing the river in the old channel, so shoring up the west embankment. And then number 9 is working with the Army Corps to kind of protect that west embankment, but leaving the river channel in the channel that's been cut since the incident in June. And so staff are really looking for some direction from the board here today. We've prepared a resolution. The idea with this resolution would be that if the board is in agreement to pick an option in each of these categories for the bridge, the dam, and river restoration, so that we know how to work with our partner organizations. Because I can tell you from being on a number of these calls, those federal and state agencies continue to ask us, well, what does the county want to do? And so it would be helpful to staff to have direction from the board on the bridge, on the dam, on the river restoration, so that we can continue to work with those partner agencies to know what sorts of resources and options they can bring to the table.
Thank you for that. Mr. Tilges, I'll ask you to come forth here and for reference and comments too here in a little bit from Public Works perspective. Also noting in the room we've got the Sheriff and Chief Deputy and Sheriff Orso. If there's any questions on from the Blue Earth County, not only Public Works, but the Sheriff's Department, the Emergency Management team, all were very helpful in all of this. Introduce yourself just for the record, please.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ryan Tilges. I'm the Blue Earth County Engineer and Public Works Director. Happy to answer any questions you have.
So let's start maybe with a little bit of history. I mean, this is something, and many of you heard me talk about riding the school bus over the dam and hopefully making it up the hill, depending on the weather and the ice sometimes. But certainly the dam is a big part of the history. This is something that's been studied since I've been involved in the board. This is my dam book. As you look at all the different things we've talked about, this is the dam book before this year. We've talked about the reports we've done, the engagements and things like that. We know we're going to make some decisions today, or we're going to make some decisions. We're going to talk through some things. I think some of the things we need to recognize is we have made a couple of decisions. Mr. Meyer referenced the November 21st reports, whether it was to repair or to restore the river. As part of that report, we were told in that estimate that it would approximately be about $2.3 million to restore the renewable energy part of it, to take care of that, and then we would see a return, a 10% share of the return of $45,000 per year, starting in the 16th year. And I believe the first decision we as a board made in the end of 2022 is talking about, is it the county's core responsibility to provide electricity? And if it is, then we need to look at that, and then is the hydropower the best way to do it? It wasn't a very good peaking plant because basically the dam was full of sediment. So we started that process at the end of 2022, then advised FERC that they would, we would like to surrender ours. I think officially we advised them the application was accepted on April 14th, 2023. So I guess in my opinion, I think we've kind of decided that we were not going to, no matter what, get into the power business. That permit, again, in the early part of 2023, over a year, almost and a half ago now, we have not gotten that surrendered yet. And as I understand it, Ryan, that FERC surrender is basically put on hold now because of the natural disaster, is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner. My understanding, based on our conversations with the FERC, is that the Division of Hydropower and Compliance, which is the division within the FERC responsible for these licensure surrenders, is waiting for a response from the county for clarification of which direction we care to proceed. Do we want to proceed with the licensure surrender, leaving the dam in its current condition post-flood damage, or do we want to surrender the license under the condition or intention of removing the dam?
So the other decision I think that we've talked about, and it's hard. We've got bridge decisions and we've got dam decisions, and I appreciate the fact that we kind of broke them out. But what we do on the bridge design is affected or determined by a dam decision. So we need to first make a decision on the dam. What we decide to do on the dam directly affects the current and future conditions and statuses of the bridge. I want to start with the bridge. At our work session, we heard from Stonebrook Engineering and their August 9th report, 22-page report, the bridge that was built in 1985. One of those 5 options we got was to do nothing, and certainly we know that doing nothing is too high of a safety and economic risk. I think we need to recognize it's not realistic to assume the river channel will not continue to change, either through erosion and scouring and things like that. That report was very clear that portions of the bridge falling into the river channel are likely, especially with any future flood event could endanger that structural integrity, causing additional effects and things like that. As we looked at that, so I think as we think about the bridge, I guess I'd ask the county board for their thought is, are we still okay with not doing nothing? I mean, doing nothing is not an option. Is that consensus? Okay. We looked at some other things, whether it be rebuilding the substructure. That wasn't economically feasible to take the top part off and try to do something. We looked at riprap protection, sheet pile protection, keeping in mind that a lot of those things, although they'd help against the scour, it would increase the water velocities and make some of those scour problems worse with the sheet pile. So we're looking at bridge removal is one of our options, and to me are we looking at a bridge removal, and we've got kind of 2 decisions, a bridge removal without replacement of a bridge or bridge removal with replacement of a bridge. I think that's the first discussion point in my mind, is where are we as a county on the need of a bridge at that location.
Mr. Chair, I'd start out, I think the bridge, about 500 cars a day, 550?
500 almost 600.
600. So it is a low daily use traffic, but my concern with it not being there is the farm to market. My understanding is it's a road that gets used a lot for the crops and getting in and out of the fields and getting grain to the market. So I think that's probably the bigger way in here, and I don't think, I won't support not putting it back at this point.
Other thoughts?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mark.
I would just concur with that. There is a number of people, and like I said, farm to market, that use it. And part of the reasons that it was redone in the beginning, so I believe in the same as what Kip was saying. We need to put a new bridge in.
Not only is it an important farm to market, but it's also important for the bicycle riders that want to go out into that area. It's been, I mean, it's, without that bridge there, the farmers on one side are traveling 45 minutes to get around to their fields. On the other side, if not longer, if they're driving a combine, it's a lot longer. But that area has been known as a very big nature area, and having a bike trail and actually expanding that bridge so it includes a bike trail, I think would be a good idea.
I agree. I think in 1985, our predecessors built it for a reason, and I agree that we keep it, rebuild it.
And I would just add that we talk about farm to market, and that's true, but it's also market to market. I know Rapidan Elevator, most of the corn that they get ends up value added, either going to a feed mill or most of it to an ethanol plant at Lake Crystal, and this has certainly caused them some inconvenience and things like that. And it's not necessarily just crops to town, it's animals that need to be fed and things like that. So I'm hearing kind of consensus under bridge options, number 2 is out.
Yeah.
Is that fair enough?
Correct.
Anything to add, Bob or Ryan, on that?
No, Mr. Chair, I think that's the direction we're looking for, and so if option number 1 for the bridge is the board preference, that would be, I would recommend that get added to the resolution then.
Now, the other thing that we've got, and thank God we've got some assistance, both from the federal government through FEMA, the emergency bridge funds, to the state of Minnesota, when the governor was down and talked about it and toured that. I think it's important to note that we've kind of we're looking at 2 different things. Everybody, my call this morning at 8 o'clock is, how long is this gonna take to do this? It's gonna be years type thing. Fortunately, we do have now the emergency bridge replacement fund, so that can help speed things up a little bit. We don't have to wait for the FEMA analysis and everything else before we can start. Would you just talk a little bit about kind of the dollars available for bridge replacement, removal and replacement, as well as the other FEMA dollars? Those are really 2 different areas, and I don't know would like to visit about that.
I maybe defer to Ryan, he's probably got the technical details.
Absolutely.
I want it in farmer terms, not that.
I'll boil it down, sir. Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Chair Papp, that there are effectively 2 separate funding tracks, and we have to look at the bridge and the dam being on separate funding, because the bridge and County State Aid Highway 9 is a major collector roadway. So in the county hierarchy, it's one of our higher, it's not a high traffic volume road when you compare it to, say, Victory Drive or the South Route, but it is a regionally significant road, and I think you guys have already identified that, obviously. With that being said, it is eligible for Federal Highway Administration funding through their emergency relief fund, and we've been working with the Federal Highway Administration and the Minnesota Department of Transportation State Aid Division to complete the detailed damage investigation report, which is the form that has to go in online to the Federal Highway Administration and the state, asking for those funding to remove and replace the bridge. We did have a meeting last week with the Federal Highway Administration and MnDOT to discuss whether or not the bridge removal was warranted as an emergency project, which would be 100% FHWA funding. effectively, because the bridge is a continuous steel beam, it's all welded or bolted together. Not if, but more likely when the bridge fails, it'll go down as one large bridge unit, not just one span over between the piers. So with that being said, that creates a significant hazard potential for more scour like we've seen on the west abutment or the east side even potentially, and threat to homes. So the FHWA engineers also saw that risk. So we did get kind of their verbal approval to pursue bridge removal under an emergency contract, and it's just a matter of getting the DDIR form completed. So staff, wanting to not waste any time, did place an advertisement and are in the process of developing plans and specifications for the emergency bridge removal. And we set a preliminary bid date, just assuming that all of those paperwork would be moved through, and we can always delay it as need be, but we wanted to at least get the advertisements placed so that we are beginning that process and being proactive.
Thank you for that. And that's good news too, I believe. I think it's important to remember that the type of bridge we've got there now that was built in 1985, it was a specific bridge because of the dam structure. Had that been a bridge across any one of the other rivers in the county, and we've talked many times, we've got more miles of river in Blue Earth County than any other county in the state, it maybe would have looked different. The reason that type of bridge was used was because of the dam, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Because of the dam's location, that somewhat dictated where the road could go. Additionally, because of the impounded sediment upstream of the dam, it was dramatically different kind of design conditions when the sediment contributed towards the bearing strength of the bridge piling that are now obviously exposed and at risk of collapse. That sediment provided a component for that bridge to be stable. And obviously in the current condition, if were the dam not there, I think you'd see a different profile and a different alignment and a different location where that bridge was placed, perhaps closer to where the dam location is now. It's hard to say. But yes, with the dam in place or out, it's a different design parameter. Under the federal highway funding, for us to qualify for a categorical exclusion, which would allow us to effectively replace the bridge in kind, or at least in similar nature, in a similar location within the county right-of-way envelope, we would be able to forego having to go through extensive environmental review, because that area's already been disturbed. That bridge has already been constructed once the dam was already constructed there. The risk of cultural resource impacts and things of that nature are pretty minimal when you're replacing existing infrastructure, which with a categorical exclusion would greatly streamline the project delivery time frame if we have to start applying for all of those different environmental permits that could add years onto the project.
So as we're looking at number one under bridge options is to pursue removal and replacement. I guess to me that's kind of a 1A and a 1B. Is it a similar bridge or a different design? Do we know, does the bridge design, as far as what type of bridge design, is that something that has to be determined right away as we start that process with the emergency bridge funding?
Yes, we would want to get a consultant on board right away to start preliminary design. And I think one of the things we'd want to look at is within that right-of-way envelope, are there ways that we can improve the bridge design? Ideally, perhaps a longer span across wherever the future river channel is going to land based on the dam decision, and getting the bridge piers out of the main channel of the river so that we don't run into issues with the debris accumulation like we've historically had at that location. The height of the bridge has been a significant problem as well, because obviously we can't reach an excavator over the edge and clear debris from the piers as it accumulates. So if we could get the bridge designed to kind of accommodate the river channel in a better fashion, I think we would want to see if there's minor alterations that can be made with the profile and the alignment of the road. Although we're somewhat tied in on both ends, obviously, and especially on the west side with residences and private properties on the west side. But I think we'd want to take a look at that, and that may drive the design of the bridge, whether it's steel beams or depending how long of concrete beams we can get in there.
But the bridge design that you can draw up is specifically dependent on our decision whether we
Yes.
remove the dam or not.
Yes,
Because you have to make a bridge design for the dam removal or a bridge design without the dam removal, correct?
that's correct. We're going to need to know what's going to happen with the dam for an efficient bridge design. Otherwise, if you have to span, where the channel has gone to and where the channel was, you're adding potentially much more bridge cost than is necessary, and it may be a larger, structure, and much less efficient, and, but not a great use of taxpayer funds in comparison to the more efficient alternative.
All right.
So are we all somewhat good under the bridge as we're looking at number 1 as being part of the resolution?
I'm good with that.
I'm good.
Okay? So now we're going to the dam options. Now, we're in the middle of the state fair. It was 4-H judging last weekend. It's open judging during the week, and it's FFA judging this weekend. And those of us that were in FFA, as we judge livestock and everything else, typically you judge 4, a pen of 4, and you put them in place, whether it was 4, 1, 2, 3, or whatever. It's been a long time since I've judged pigs, but a lot of times, or any kind of livestock for FFA, but a lot of times it's a whole lot easier to pick out the worst one in the pen than the best one in the pen. And doing like that. As we look at our pen of 4 under dam options, and kind of with that, I guess I'm looking at discussion first of the one where it talks about rebuilding. Is there one in there as far as rebuilding a new dam?
Number
Replacement.
5, I believe.
Number 5, okay, yep. With the replacement of the Rapidan Dam. Okay, where are we on that for discussion? I haven't heard from any constituents or anything that we want to put a different new dam in spanning the what we've got now.
I see no purpose for
I'm not
another
interested
dam.
in that at all.
No, we're beyond that.
Vance, you got any emotional attachment to pig number 5?
You come back to like the house hunters, and you can X that one out, I think.
Okay. So now to me, it kind of is the dam, does it stay, or does it go? But before we get there, Ryan, please talk a little bit about, I know as part of the FERC permit, there's some steps that have to go through with historic significance and things like that. Give us just a little update on that and what has to happen. I mean, maybe that might not be an option if it's got historical value. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, Commissioners, thank you for that. I was able just yesterday to connect with the division director for the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office per our discussions at the last board meeting. And based on that discussion, we've talked about in the past that the county is going to pursue having an architectural historian and evaluate the dam for its historical relevance. We had the letter from 1999 that stated it was potentially eligible. It was kind of an unofficial or an opinion letter, but it was potentially eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. Obviously, since that 1999 letter, there have been some structural changes to the dam. Replacement of the bridge deck, the filling of the sluice bays, the bulkheading of the timber needle gates, the reconfiguration of the steel tainer gates, and then obviously the apron repairs. In addition to that, the dam had obviously had major changes completed to the interior of the dam in the 1985 retrofit, recommissioning it for power production. So she understood that, and we're planning to hire a consultant to proceed with that evaluation so that we can have an idea of what that determination is going to be ahead of time, and not, typically speaking, that determination and that request is initiated by a federal agency. But it certainly appears that regardless of however we proceed, there will likely be federal funding attached to this. If there were only state funding attached, this would not be a requirement. However, it's highly likely that there'll be either FEMA or perhaps direct congressional appropriations, or perhaps Army Corps of Engineer dollars. There's a high likelihood of having federal funds. So we're going to, I think, receive proposals this Friday and hopefully approve that work. With that being said, then, that determination would go to the State Historic Preservation Office, and they would have it. And effectively, what they're looking for is that their order of preference is that A, you avoid impacts to the historic structure, if it is indeed eligible or listed. Obviously, I think we all acknowledge that avoiding impacts to it is impossible. Secondly, minimize impacts to the structure. And then third, if you can't do the avoidance or the minimization, is to mitigate, which would be historical documentation, perhaps interpretive amenities or historical plaques and boards and things that monument the history of the dam prior to removal. The other consideration that we discussed was the hazard potential. Dams are different than old houses or perhaps even old bridges in that they're holding back or impacting the flows of these rivers, and they have a much higher hazard potential. And the public safety element of leaving it standing there, very difficult, obviously, to secure against public and other things. So they certainly understand that. I couldn't get a definitive answer because obviously we don't know whether or not it will be eligible to be listed. But I'm perhaps trying to read the tea leaves a little bit. It didn't appear that they would be obstructionists to the decision that the county board makes. And it certainly appeared that they understand, but this is going to be a dynamic process. But I didn't get a hard no. If the board were to choose, say, removal or replacement or any of the options that we have in front of us today. It certainly seemed like they understood this condition that the county was in. And they also have a programmatic agreement with FEMA that may apply, but we've got to work through that process. We have our meeting with FEMA finally coming up in the following weeks. So hopefully that answers your question.
Any clarifying questions or comments on that?
That's kind of what we got reported the last time. A couple more details, but thank you for that.
So I guess next I'd like to go to pick number 3 on the list, which is kind of tied in with number 7 in my mind, and that is bringing the dam back to pre-disaster conditions by restoring the embankment and everything else. Now, actually doing that and knowing how much it costs to do that are two different things, correct? As I understand it, your FEMA baseline is the fact that you must analyze or study the cost to put it back to pre-disaster condition, a hypothetical study or whatever. That's where our FEMA dollar amount comes from, is what would it cost to put it back like that?
That's correct, Commissioner.
So we will know that, or we have to know that before we can move forward.
Correct.
Correct? Okay, so I guess my question to the board members is, as we look at number 3 under the dam options, which I think a lot of it kind of ties into number 7 under river restoration, is what is our interest to restore that embankment, the abutment, and reestablishing that river channel. In other words, filling the hole back up to do that. And I know that would probably take a lot. I don't know how many cubic feet of ground we've lost, but what I guess to me discussion on number 1, or I'm sorry, on number 3 would be pertinent. Would that be fair, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I think you're absolutely right. It does tie then to number 7 when you start talking about the river restoration. So these options are somewhat tied together in ways that you've just described, but I think that discussion around number 3 would be a good one for staff to hear the board's position on.
Well, I was there, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I was there the Friday that we hauled 4,000 tons of riprap, not 400 tons, but 4,000 tons to try to save that first pier, and whether we're successful or not, I mean, we got that job done, but it would have been a lot more than that to fill the rest of the hole. So I just don't see that that is our best path forward. Commissioner?
Mr. Chair, I would agree with you, and we've had some discussions in the work sessions about this very issue. I have a huge concern to filling, I call it the void, and putting that water back over a 100-year dam that we have spent a lot of money on just to have the reoccurring issues. So I am not supportive of this option at all.
Other commissioners?
I agree. Not interested.
Yeah, I'd hate to put a cost of value on filling that void like Commissioner Brunder said. It would be unbelievable. The thousands and thousands of semi-loads to fill that would be. And then just to protect to reestablish the water going over a dam, which we're not sure with this destruction from the river right now is secure itself.
Correct, Commissioner. And maybe I'd add a distinction in there. It's likely, based on preliminary conversations with our consultant who specializes in this type of work, bar engineering, that like a large concrete core wall would have to be constructed, tying the dam back into the west embankment and probably going farther into the earthen embankment to really stop water from washing through again, and then fill put back in, which is a dramatically different scope. And then obviously going and making all the repairs to the dam to restore it to the pre-2019 flood event, because obviously that still is a factor, that we had a grant for repairing 2019 flood damages, and now we've had these catastrophic 2024 flood damages, which will be significant in cost compared to, if another alternative is dam removal and then consideration of filling that slope back in behind an armored shoreline and kind of putting the river back on its original tracks is a dramatically different conversation. But yes, I agree with the board that there's a likelihood of something like this reoccurring with obviously the severity of the events that we've seen, the debris we see coming down the river, and some of the struggles of the current condition.
And I concur with all the comments, and it's like, it's pretty hard to fool Mother Nature, and it took its course. She took its course. Wow. You always call it she. Yeah, it's, I don't know what the heck kind of money it would take, and I don't think it would solve it. So.
I do think we have to be clear that our June 19th FEMA, that was approved, later, that goes away now with this new FEMA thing, that checkbook or those dollars that we had not spent yet, asked for an extension on, those dollars will go away with the new FEMA event, correct?
That's my understanding, Commissioner, you're correct, and that those damages from 2019 that were left unrepaired, based on our conversations with HSCM, should be able to be rolled over into the new grant application that is coupled with the 2024 flood damages.
So I'm kind of feeling consensus that number 3 and number 7 on our list are X'd out.
Yep.
Yep.
I want to go back just a second. You talked about the consultant and stuff like that, and people have asked me, how come you're not using the same study or the same, the same firm, the same engineers? And I think it's important to recognize that you have dam experts and you have bridge experts. And, if it has to do with the bridge, those are engineers and experts, companies that is their expertise. Just because you're good at bridges doesn't mean you're good at dams and things like that. So I think just a little clarification, that's why we're using different folks as we ask for bridge opinions and dam opinions.
That's correct, Commissioner. And so with respect to the bridge, we've involved the Minnesota Department of Transportation, the Bridge Office, which has several bridge and hydraulics and geotechnical engineers within that office and are responsible for all of the bridges within the state of Minnesota. We've tapped into their expertise. They recommended and helped us get aligned with Stonebrook Engineering, who we've worked with them on several projects and worked with this bridge engineer. He's a very good local agency bridge engineer. Additionally, the dam is a very specialized engineering. It's not something that many local firms get into. You've really got to be statewide or regional even to have that expertise. With that being said, I can also tell the board that the two have been talking. It's not that they've been in vacuums, not working with each other. So BAR has been working with Stonebrook to provide any requested channel information or kind of relevant information from previous studies. So they are collaborating where needed.
Well, hearing pretty much consensus on number 5, no interest in replacing with the new dam, not a lot of interest on number 3 and number 7, which repairing the current dam or filling the void, as we talked about it, kind of leaves us with the dam either to leave it as it is or leave it with alternative or alterations or removal in my mind. What are our risks on number 6 to protect the channel and leave the dam in its current condition? Do we know that? And on the other side of that, we don't know 100%. We've got a pretty good idea that we would, if we wanted to alter it or to restore the river, you know, from the historic perspective and things like that, but that's not cast in concrete yet as well. So talk to us a little bit about the risks or the liability or leaving it in as is. I will say one of my best suggestions I got was just take the top of the dam off, leave the spillway, and we could have a water slide. So, but I told him I didn't think safe liability-wise we were interested in that.
New
So
water park.
talk to us about number 6, and I would tie in number 9 where it's basically leaving it as it is.
Yes, Commissioner. Obviously, the internal safety of the dam is unknown. We've not sent staff in since the flood event due to confined space entry concerns and inability really to get in there safely. We were able to, again, come up river in early July and poke our heads inside the powerhouse, and there was, again, 4 feet of sediment impounded inside of the powerhouse that was mucky, and I almost pulled my muck boot off of my foot as I stepped into kind of the mushy part of it, so we were only able to go a few steps in, but we assessed for large structural cracks, didn't see any major new structural cracks. But we haven't been able to go inside of the Amberson or the rest of the dam. With that being said, though, it's very difficult to secure the dam from people that shouldn't be going in there, and it's an unsafe condition. Again, without knowing if there's adequate air supply for people to be in there without respiratory assistance. Additionally, you've been out there. We have it secured as well as possible with chain link fencing and other things of that nature, but we know how over time the public tends to go around those things and begin trespassing. So that's a considerable liability concern, as well as the fact that, you know, you can now with the sandbar created downstream, that anybody via kayak or canoe could potentially be climbing around on the structure. It's just seems to be a matter of time before somebody is injured or worse. With that being said, it's kicking the flows around. You're creating an odd or awkward river dynamic by the flows hitting the dam and then bouncing around it and then bouncing off the layers of bedrock and eating away at that and having to come back and make a bend. Obviously, the rivers want to straighten themselves out to all extents practical. It would require pretty robust armoring of the river to leave the dam in place, and even with that, I don't have a lot of confidence that what armoring we would attempt to do would be sufficient over the long term, given the fact that you know, we watched during that large flood event, we watched 8-foot boulders get washed away. The traditional materials that we use to stabilize rivers are based on certain velocities, and we experience velocities almost 4 or 5 times greater than those velocities that those riprap rock is designed to withstand. So with that, I think the longevity of those repairs, I would anticipate that that's going to be kind of a continual problem child on that west embankment of trying to protect it and be a little bit of a money pit in the long term. Coupled with the safety. The other part of it, I think that's a risk, is the funding factor. We don't know for sure if interim repairs are, if the funding is viable. So we know, as Bob said earlier, funding through FEMA would cover either repair of the facility or removal. It doesn't really talk about interim river stabilization, so that's something that we would have to work through with FEMA. But based on, I've been trying to work my way through their funding assistance guide, I don't see it clearly laid out in there that that's something that's necessarily going to be available to the county without us coming up with a strong argument for it, which may be a challenge.
And I think that maybe draws attention to number 9 on the list, where I think number 9 really is an option tied to number 6, that you can't maybe look at those independent because it really gets into that river restoration. As we protect that bank under option 6, you still need to deal with the river restoration aspects of that option.
My call this morning suggested just break up the dam, the top of the dam, and just move it over to the west bank to armorize that you know, because it's going to get worse. I mean, the river will continue. We've got highly erosive river and erosive sandstone, you know, so that's something we have to do. If it's a structural integrity or if it's a safety issue, by leaving it in, they can't hardly make us keep it, can they? If it's structurally unstable, I'm thinking more on the historical or the
Yeah, that's something we'd have to work through, but in fact, I brought that up somewhat point blank in the conversation yesterday. I said, we've been at these situations historically where we've been at an impasse because 2 bridges were listed on the National Historic Register. Unfortunately for the Dodd Ford Bridge, my predecessor found an alternative solution, and for the Kern Bridge, we were able to find federal kind of one-off dollars that were left over from another specialized project that we were able to utilize to pick and salvage that bridge. But those were both in situations where I think the county had somewhat given up hope and at one point was ready for those to just fall into the river and collapse. Obviously, the magnitude and scale of the dam, that's not something that, based on my understanding with our conversation, not something that they want to see happen, not something the county wants to see happen. And as you alluded to, there's a significant amount of liability and risk there, and I think they understand that can't be just left. We can't look the other way.
So I guess I'd be interested in board members' comments on either number 6 or number 9, the leaving as is.
Mr. Chair, I'll give a little bit of input here. This one was one of the options that I thought was viable. You know, I really spent a lot of time thinking about this one and talking with different people. But at the end of the day, I think with the recommendations we're getting from staff and the challenges we would have with that old dam again, I just don't think it's a viable option at this point. I just don't, I won't be able to support that one.
I think, you know, we don't have a dam anymore, now we've got a weir.
Yeah, got a
That's
weir.
directly water where we don't want it, quite honestly.
And the erosion issues we have in the river all the time, this is gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
What would happen to our park at the end of the day?
I agree with Commissioner Brunder and yourself. Number one, we have the responsibility of the dam itself, and if somebody gets hurt around that dam. But having the weir there is a very good possibility, having a flood like we had back in 19, or having a flood like we had this year, that it could actually go through the field and connect to the other side. The field beyond where the dam store was, it actually, and if I'm right, there's a lot of sand in that field. and it could actually run right through that field and connect to the other side, to the river. And that's not something that I want to say I was approving of.
We're building a bridge in the wrong spot, is what you're saying.
You know, if we get that dam out of there, that it wouldn't be doing that.
Right.
I agree.
I,
The dam's a hazard.
I'm not gonna,
So are we at consensus then, the number 6 and number 9
yeah,
are Xed out?
Correct.
So that, to me, looks like we're kind of talking now about number 4, and arguably would number 8 be a part of that, Bob?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
So number 4 talks about working with alternate or alternative procedures, cap projects, but no matter what we do with that, we still have to do the study or the analysis to know what our total dollar is, correct?
That's correct. That'll be the baseline for the funding that FEMA would award, would be to determine the cost to bring the dam back to its pre-2019 disaster status, as well as the upstream river channel, as well as the west embankment, as well as the county park downstream and the facilities we lost. The total damages would be what could be allocated towards an alternative project.
At baseline. And as I understand it, an alternate cap project is one where you don't get any more money than you spend. It's up to the maximum, whatever that is. An alternative project is they'll provide a fixed cost, gives us more flexibility, and we would keep those excess funds to do what we want. And mitigation can be part of the analysis, correct?
That's my understanding as well.
But it has to be line item, okay? So at what point do we need to, if we're looking at river restoration, if we're looking at, removing the dam as part of that restoration, at what point do we have to make decisions of what type of cap project, or what are those next steps? I mean, one of the things I think, if we do look at river restoration, we're reconnecting the river, restoring the rapids, removing the dam, some of those ecological functions, and things like that. I mean, that's also the time to get some community input, and what is the future of that county park look like down there, or of that area, and things like that. When do those cap projects, they certainly don't have to be made until after that analysis is done, so we know what the baseline is, correct?
Yeah, Commissioner, I would anticipate this is going to be an iterative process. We've yet again to meet with FEMA for the first time. I think when we have that kickoff meeting, we intend to have, if administration's interested in being there, our emergency management folks, BAR, and other staff, obviously from Public Works Department. But it'll be to talk about which of these programs is really the best solution for the county based on the decisions that are being made today. And then proceeding with that preliminary engineering evaluation for those baseline costs we've talked about, and kind of working through all of those specific details. Because yes, there are quite a few questions about which of those programs best fits our need, and I certainly think it's going to become much more clear as we meet and work and talk with FEMA, and perhaps even get our FEMA representative assigned to the dam. Perhaps there's even an opportunity, if the work session seemed to have been very productive, to have them attend a work session to talk about this process as well. So again, we're really waiting on FEMA to meet with us.
Okay. Are we hearing what we need to hear, Bob, for future direction, or what are some follow-up questions or next steps that we need to talk about today?
Well, maybe I'll just go back to your previous question for a second and say that, from a staff perspective, I think we're at the start of developing a path forward. And so when you say what are the next steps and stuff, some of that is the work that's in front of us, so we can develop a path to get us to some of these final outcomes that are desired. And I'd agree with you. I think we are going to need a lot of input in that process to ultimately come up with those outcomes. But until we get, some direction here today, hopefully, we were unable to move forward down a path with our partner agencies. So, if there is consensus on the board in terms of which of these options to include in a resolution, I think the first next step is to throw that to a vote to determine if the board has true consensus. Then you will be directing staff to continue to work with those partner agencies with that direction in mind, so that we can bring back information to the board in future work sessions or board meetings, so that you understand and can give input into the policy components of whatever direction is determined.
And as we asked for some background in the resolution, but wanted to have this discussion before we looked at that. So by my notes here, I think as part of that resolution, we're still concentrating on 1, 4, and 8, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to number 1, direct the Blue Earth County staff to pursue removal and replacement of the CASA 9 bridge with the funding provided by the Federal Highway Administration emergency relief accounts and Minnesota DOT disaster assistance accounts. To number 4, direct the Blue Earth County staff to work with FEMA on alternative procedures projects, including the removal of the Rapidan Dam. And number 8, to direct the Blue Earth County staff to work with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to restore the Blue Earth River in a river channel established post-dam removal, and seek federal and state funding assistance for the river restoration.
Okay, we've heard the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Discussion.
I don't have anything else to add, except that, we spent a lot of energy and a lot of time on this. I appreciate all the staff and the FEMA and the groups that have come in and talked at our work session, the sheriffs and the sheriff's office, Eric Weller at the emergency management. We have been really digging into this over the last few months, and appreciate all their time and efforts. And then, during the catastrophe with your staff out there, I know they were out there 24 hours a day and working extremely hard, so we appreciate that.
And we've explored every options I believe that there is, and I think we come up with the proper ones to move forward.
I would like to add that after, this isn't part of the motion, but after this is completed, after the motion, the county and private organizations, recreation, different organizations should get together, create a group, so we know how the river is going to look like after this happens. How can we improve our recreation? How can we improve our kayaking? How can we improve our bicycle riding, and get this area back to where we know what it was before? This has been a rough thing for us. We've been going through this. We've been talking about the dam for 5 years, but of course this year it came out really, that Mother Nature came out and showed us we have to push this thing along.
Well, we got a great park program in place, a good park board, so we got lots of resources.
Right.
Other discussion? Are we ready to vote on the resolution as it is in the board book, concentrating on number 1, number 4, and number 8? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion carried. The motion passes. The resolution is approved. Any last things on this? I do want to get to Representative Born Olson before we take a short break. Appreciate that. Anything else on this topic?
No, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate your work.
All right,
Thank you very much. Good job, Chair.
Thank you, Ryan.
Representative Olson, as I understand, not even you can move an overturned semi in the middle of a road to get out of your way. So we appreciate your flexibility. And honestly, you probably now know more about the Rapidan Dam than you wanted to, but I would just, as introducing you, remind the folks, that Monday morning, 6:55 was my first phone call and text message, and certainly one of those was from Representative Olson wanting to know what can we do, how can we help, and things like that. So we appreciate that outreach and you being involved in this throughout the whole process. So thank you for listening to our hour-long discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Papp. Turns out that it was actually, it was a really bad day for that semi-truck driver who took the entrance onto Highway 60 too fast and rolled, covering the road. But the fact that I ran into a train crossing and the train was there too, delaying me and forcing me to sit here and listen to this discussion was actually something that I probably would have wanted to do anyways, because this is something that, the Rapidan Dams in my district is very important conversation that I've had with a large number of people. So I appreciate having this discussion and hearing about the plans, what Blue Earth County is looking to do moving forward with this project. Entire reason for me being here this morning is to introduce myself again. Every year I like to make the rounds to every city council, every county commission, and every school board in the district. Make sure you have my cell phone number, make sure that you have a way to contact me in order to better connect what the state is doing with what the county's doing, with what the cities are doing and the school boards are doing. I have really excellent relationships with a number of you on this commission. I appreciate all the text messages and the phone calls and the conversations that I have when we meet in all the locations that we seem to run into each other. It's really encouraging when I have individuals who pick up the phone and let me know what's going on. I am a firm believer that I have no idea what's happening in your county or in your area unless you tell me what's going on. And so it's your job, if you are the grass, the bottom level boots on the ground individuals who see things every single day in Blue Earth County. I'm not in Blue Earth County every single day. And so by allowing me, establishing that relationship with me so I know what's going on, better assist me in helping do what I can for you. And understand that those of you who look at it and say, well, Bjorn, you're not my representative, that's you can say that, but as Vance will tell you, I'm a firm believer in the fact that Mankato is the hub of this area. Southern Minnesota depends on Mankato's success. And Representative Brand and Representative Frederick will attest to it, at least they better attest to the fact that Bjorn Olson is a firm believer that when Mankato succeeds, his district succeeds as well. So if there is something that Mankato needs, ensure that I know about it as well so I can poke and prod Frederick and Brand a little harder to make sure that it happens, as well as working for the state. So firm believer that Blue Earth County is in a really good position because you have a vast amount of individuals representing you in St. Paul. So entirely here just to talk to you, introduce myself, and listen to any of the conversations that you think I need to know moving into session starting in January. Obviously it's a long ways from now, it's August still, but I've begun, I don't play favorites, but Blue Earth County Commissioners, you're the first commission I've gone to on my walk around the district. So take that as you will. You're the first county commission. I've got 3 others that I need to get to. Entire reason for me being here. So unless there's something you think I need to know immediately, other than, this was a wealth of knowledge that I needed to know, so I appreciate that. You have my cell phone, and you are more than welcome to call me at any time for any reason. Send me a text message. You're not bothering me. That really bugs me when people say I didn't want to bother you. My job is to be bothered by you, all right? So if there's nothing else, I'll let you get to it, and I appreciate your time.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time as well, and your role on the tax committee, transportation, both finance and policy. Veterans finance and policy is important to a lot of us in Blue Earth County. So
I appreciate that, Commissioner. I probably should have led with a little more of an introduction, but we know each other pretty well, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
we will recess the county board meeting for just for 10 minutes to 10:20, and at 10:20 we will call to order the Economic Development Authority meeting prior, and then go back in the county board meeting. All right? recess to 10:20. Call to order the Economic Development Authority meeting. The first item is to review the agenda. Bob, please.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda
I'll
today.
move the agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The agenda is approved as printed. Next item is the August 13th minutes. What is your wishes?
Move the minutes.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Discussion. We ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion's passed. The August 13th minutes are approved. Next, I'd like to ask Nancy to come forward to talk about the Housing Trust Fund ordinance. So, welcome, and my apologies, you probably know more about the Rapidan Dam than you thought you were gonna know when you came today, so appreciate your patience.
History in action. True. Today I wanted to talk about the local housing trust fund. It is a consistent and flexible resource that helps communities incentivize and leverage public and private resources to jumpstart affordable housing projects in our community. The county identified the establishment of a housing trust fund during the development of our Affordable Housing Action Plan, and the state of Minnesota encourages local governments to create a housing trust funds. And in 2017, the state legislature actually defined the housing trust funds into law, providing clarity to assist local jurisdictions in dedicating these public revenues for housing. They also further incentivized it by providing the housing trust fund, providing 1-for-1 and 1-for-2 matches to communities with housing trust funds. And with the establishment of this housing trust fund, we would be able to seek funding through Minnesota Housing in a request for proposal that's coming out this fall. So it's an important time to be able to leverage more funding for the trust fund. In addition, the state legislature last year further supported the housing trust funds by creating the statewide affordable housing aid. And in 2023, Blue Earth County was certified and received $165,141. Likewise, the city also received $288,957 to put into the housing trust fund. And this year we received that same amount. So it's a good time to start looking at this effort. Under the statewide affordable housing aid, they do give us definitions that we should be serving households that have income which does not exceed 115,000 or 115% of the area median income for home ownership, and then 80% of the area median income for rental housing projects. And in your packet, I did provide you some area median income definitions, so we can choose to use area median income at the statewide average, or we can use area median income for here in Blue Earth County. So as we look at projects and make those determinations, we have those options in the trust fund. The county may begin its housing trust fund using the statewide affordable housing aid, and then can incentivize the matching dollars through the state using possibly general fund dollars. Today we're bringing before you an ordinance to establish the housing trust fund, and it sets the purpose and the intent for the fund. And it's really intended to encourage the creation of affordable housing for renters and owners. It also promotes preservation of affordable housing, and it prevents and ends homelessness, as well as providing rental assistance opportunities. Other ordinance components provide the description of funding sources that we can use to build the trust fund, how we're going to distribute the funds, and then creates an advisory board that would make recommendations to the EDA for the use of the funds. And some of the sources of funding really have to do with private cash donations from citizens and businesses. It could be grants and loans from federal and state governments. It could be principal and interest from loan repayment agreements and activities of the trust. It could also be local levy dollars, general fund balances, application fees, and the like. The resolution that we have today creates a housing trust fund, and it outlines the creation of an advisory committee in partnership with the city. And this advisory committee would review and recommend planning and priorities for affordable housing, as well as recommend how we loan out or grant out to recipients. And in addition to having city and county staff as part of the committee, each EDA would be able to appoint 2 members to that committee. So following this public hearing today, the requested action is a motion to approve an ordinance establishing the Housing Trust Fund and approve a motion by resolution to create the Housing Trust Fund Advisory Board. Do you have any other questions?
Any clarifying questions?
Pretty good.
Okay, it's not hearing any clarifying questions. We'll open this meeting to public comment. Part of the hearing, comments from the public are expected to be civil and respectful. Please note this meeting is being recorded. There's a 5-minute time limit. County administrator will be giving you a 1-minute warning and let you know when you've used your allotted time. In addition, the board may restrict or limit the time allotted to a person whose remarks are repetitive or not relevant to the matter under consideration by the board. If you'd like to make a comment regarding the Housing Trust Fund ordinance, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. I'd ask, is there anyone wishing to make comments on the Housing Trust Fund ordinance? The chair will ask for a third and final time, is there anyone wishing to make comments on the Housing Trust Fund ordinance? Hearing none, we will close the public comment portion and bring it back to the board. What are your wishes?
Mr. Chair, I think I'll move the improvement, the resolution regarding economic development here, housing.
So we've got to approve the ordinance establishing it, and we need to do a resolution for the advisory committee. Should that be 2 separate motions?
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be wise, Mr.
Okay, so
Chair.
let's just do the approving the ordinance establishing it first of all. Is that okay if we,
Yep.
we split it? Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There is a second. Discussion. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The ordinance has established that. Now, by resolution, to form the advisory committee, what are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Got a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. The resolution is approved. This concludes our agenda for the Economic Development Authority meeting. Entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you,
Thank
Nancy.
you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
We will now we will reconvene the Blue Earth County Commissioners Board meeting, and we will go to item 6, tab number 3, planning and zoning. Good morning, John.
Morning,
Please
John.
identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Considine, County Land Use Administrator. Our first item here this morning is PC 17-24. It's a request for review and approval by Kelly Meager for an after-the-fact interim use permit to operate a diesel mechanic shop as a level 2 home occupation. The property is zoned agricultural and is part of the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 29, Jamestown Township. The property address is 60511 235th Street, Madison Lake, Minnesota. At the Planning Commission, staff presented the report. The applicant was present and available to answer any questions from the Planning Commission, and there were no comments from the public. Members of the Planning Commission had no questions, concerns, or comments, and following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval to the County Board based on the findings and conditions recommended by staff. The board action this morning would be passage of the resolution based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. At this point, we will hold the public hearing. Public comment will be allowed to be civil and respectful. As mentioned, this is being recorded, a 5-minute time limit. You will have a 1-minute warning and know when your time is allotted. Again, we may restrict or limit the time allotted to people whose remarks are repetitive or not relevant to the matter under consideration for the board. So at this time, I would ask if there's any public comment regarding PC 17-24 to come to the podium and identify yourself. Is there anyone wishing to comment? I'll ask for the third and last time, anyone wishing to comment on PC 17-24. Seeing and hearing no one, I will bring it back to the board and close the public comment portion. Comments from the board?
I don't have any comments, Mr. Chair, but I would move the resolution based on the recommendation by the Planning Commission.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried, it is approved. Next item, please.
The next item is PC 33-23. It is a request for review and approval by Gerald O. Schaefer Living Trust and approval of an interim use permit to operate a short-term rental. The board will note there are two of these requests today from the same applicant, so it is not a typo, there are two applications. The property is zoned rural town site and is in the shoreland of Lake Madison. The property consists of Lot 7 of Block 1, Shorewood Edition, located in Section 36 in Jamestown Township, Township number 109 North, Range 25 West. The property address is 62715 Shorewood Lane, Madison Lake, Minnesota 56063. At the Planning Commission, staff presented the report. A representative of the applicant was present and available to answer any questions from the Planning Commission, and there were no comments from the public. Members of the Planning Commission had no questions or concerns or comments, and following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval to the County Board based on the findings and conditions recommended by staff. And the board action this morning for this item would be passage of the resolution based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you've heard that, and we will do this in two separate public comment portions. So at this point, we'll open the public comment specifically on PC 33-23. Ask if there's any comment to come to the podium. State your name and address for the record. Is there anyone wishing to make comments? The chair will ask for the third and last time, anyone wishing to comment on PC 33-23. Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public comment portion, bring it back to the board. What is your wishes? Vince?
I would move that we pass this based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. PC 33-23 is approved. Go to the next one, please, John.
Yes, PC 34-23. Again, this is a request from Gerald O. Schaefer Living Trust for review and approval of an interim use permit to operate a short-term rental, just 2 doors down from the previous one discussed. The property is zoned rural town site and is in the shoreland of Madison Lake. The property consists of Lot 9, Block 1 of Shorewood Edition and is located in Section 36, Jamestown Township. The property address is 62683 Shorewood Lane, Madison Lake, Minnesota 56063. At the Planning Commission, staff presented the report. A representative of the applicant, again, was there and available to answer questions from the Planning Commission, and there were no comments from the public. Members of the Planning Commission did not have any questions on this proposal either. The Planning Commission discussed the density of short-term rentals in the area. This was something that is allowed according to standards. It does not violate the density standards. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval to the County Board based on the findings and conditions recommended by staff. And the board action this morning will be passage of the resolution based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. I will open the public comment portion of the hearing. If you'd like to make a comment regarding PC 34-23, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone wishing to speak on PC 34-23? I'll ask a second time. Anyone wishing to comment? Chair will ask for a third and last time. Anyone wishing to comment on PC 34-23? Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public comment portion and bring it back to the board. Any clarifying or final comments? What is your wishes?
I'll move approval based on the recommendation by the planning commission.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, discussion?
The only thing I would like to add to this, Mr. Chair, about the density that was brought up was we had short discussion. My understanding is, well, the one is, will sleep quite a few, and this one sleeps enough. But my understanding was the owner lives right in between the two.
Correct.
So I think we should be okay. And there's a lot more area out here than the ones we've had in the past where we've had large groups of people coming in. A lot of parking on both of them. I think it just fits better in this location, so.
Appreciate that. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion's carried. PC 34-23 is approved.
Thank you, John.
This concludes the planning and zoning items. Next on our agenda, number 7, starting with tab number 4, is drainage. Mr. Henniker, will you join us, please?
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I've got 4 drainage items for you. I'll start with County Ditch number 51, setting a hearing date for the redetermination of benefits. County Ditch 51 watershed has approximately 495 benefited acres and is primarily located in Ceresco Township. On January 23rd, 2024, the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority ordered a redetermination of benefits. Viewers were appointed in order to create an updated benefits and damages listing and viewers report. A copy of the draft viewers report for the redetermination of benefits was submitted to Blue Earth County Drainage Management staff on August 2nd, 2024. We request the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority set a date of September 24th, 2024 at 9 a.m. for the hearing on the proposed viewers report for County Ditch 51 redetermination of benefits.
Okay, you've heard the request, the recommendation.
I'll move approval. Second.
Got a motion and a second, discussion. We ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The hearing date is set for September 24th at 9:00 a.m.
2 more similar in nature. Next is County Ditch 91, redetermination of benefits, setting hearing date. County Ditch 91 watershed has approximately 652 benefited acres and is primarily located in Sterling Township. On January 23rd, 2024, the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority ordered a redetermination of benefits. Viewers were appointed in order to create an updated benefits and damages listing and viewers report. Copy of the drafted viewers report for the redetermination of benefits was submitted to Blue Earth County Drainage Management staff on August 2nd, 2024. Again, we request the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority set a date of September 24th, 2024 at 9 a.m. for the hearing on the proposed viewers report for County Ditch 91 redetermination of benefits.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, discussion. We're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The CD 91 redetermination of benefits hearing will be on September 24th, 9:00. Next one, please.
All right. Next up is setting hearing date for Judicial Ditch 20, redetermination of benefits hearing. Judicial Ditch 20 watershed has approximately 2,392 benefited acres and is located in Sterling and Lyra townships. On November 21st, 2023, the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority ordered a redetermination of benefits. Viewers were appointed in order to create an updated benefits and damages listing and viewers report. Copy of the drafted viewers report for the redetermination of benefits was submitted to Blue Earth County Drainage Management staff on August 2nd of 2024. We request the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority set a date of September 24th, 2024 at 9 a.m. for the hearing on the proposed viewers report for Judicial Ditch 20 redetermination of benefits.
Okay, you've heard the action requested.
I'll move approval.
And a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, discussion. We're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. The JD 20 redetermination of benefits hearing will be on September 24th, 9 o'clock. Next, please.
All right, fourth and final item from drainage is County Ditch 5 violation notice. An illegal outlet in the County Ditch 5 has been identified and recorded by Blue Earth County drainage staff. On August 14th of 2024, it was observed by Blue Earth County drainage staff that new and existing private tile is draining in the CD5 from currently unbenefited acres, making this a violation of usage for CD5. No petition for outlet has been received by Blue Earth County drainage staff. As a result, the drainage authority must notify the owner of the property and direct them to block the outlet or otherwise make the outlet ineffective. The provided findings and orders shall serve as a formal notice of violation to the landowner as required by Minnesota Statute 103E.401, subdivisions 7 and 8, for unauthorized usage of county CD5 as an outlet. Today, we request the Drainage Authority approve the draft findings and orders so that it may serve as the violation notice to the landowner.
Okay, and you see the drafted order in our materials. What are your wishes?
I just have a point of clarification, Mr. Chair. So Ryan, you're telling me, as I read this, is that they have to plug it, they won't have an option to be accepted into the petition in?
So I'm just clearly reading what is laid out in statute.
Okay,
I don't know that we have actually historically ever done that in
Okay.
Blue Earth County drainage management history. But we have given others the opportunity
Okay.
to petition in the past. So
all right. Then one more clarifying question. Have you reached out to the landowner at this point and tried to?
I have not yet. I don't
We
have a
start with
point of
this?
contact.
Okay.
I have spoken with the private tile contractor that was doing the work and let him know that he might want to give them the heads up that this is not
All right.
legal.
All right. Well, I can support this as long as we give them a chance to petition in.
For sure.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
most definitely.
Just want that clarification.
Yeah.
I'll move approval.
Okay, got a motion and a second, discussion. We're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The findings in order is approved.
Mr. Commissioner, I was going to note too in the findings in order, it does give a date that they would have.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't over a
Okay.
timeframe.
Oh,
Yep.
I
Yep.
didn't look at it that detail. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
We will go to agenda item number 8, tab number 8. Mr. Manderfeld, please join us.
Morning.
Morning.
Ryan.
Morning, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark Manderfeld, Property and Environmental Resources Deputy Director. Thank you for having me. I'm here to introduce the PFAS Source Identification and Reduction Grant Program. A little background, Blue Earth County is committed to protecting the public, wildlife, and the environment. The federal EPA and the MPCA have identified PFAS as forever chemicals, which are a health hazard. PFAS are manufactured chemicals widely found in the environment, drinking water, animals, and humans. PFAS is also identified in landfill leachate. The MPCA is currently accepting submissions for PFAS source identification and reduction grant program. Waste management facilities such as the Ponderosa landfill may apply for up to $125,000 to develop and implement pollution prevention and reduction initiatives aimed at reducing PFAS. The PFAS Source Identification and Reduction Grant Program is accepting applications on a rolling basis until the funds are depleted. The grant program requires a local match of 10%. The match can be in-kind services by the applicant. Property and Environmental Resources intends to work with our engineer at the landfill, Foth Engineering, to identify an action plan, complete an application, and implement the action plan, and all projects must be completed by December 2026. Today's request, Property and Environmental Resources requests approval to allow us to make application for the PFAS Identification and Reduction Grant. Also to utilize the matching dollars or in-kind services not to exceed the 10% or $12,500, and to authorize us to enter into a grant agreement if selected for the program.
Okay, you've heard the request.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Had a motion and a second. Discussion?
And just a comment, Mr. Chair, it's always nice to get a grant to do stuff to help stop some pollution. That's very nice.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion is approved. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Item number 9, tab number 9, opioid settlement authorization. Josh, join us, please.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners,
Morning,
Josh Milo, Deputy County Administrator. Today I bring forward some more funding recommendations out of the opioid settlement fund. Our internal work group has been working this summer on looking at some more options for some of this funding. And after the summer, there's 4 areas that we're looking for board support to authorize the funding for out of the opioid settlement funds. One is for the Parent Support Outreach Program. This is done out of the Blue Earth County Human Services Program. This is a program, there is some shortage of funds, and so one of the things we've talked about with our group as we're doing some work here that is in evidence-informed and prevention strategy for a perinatal population and for youth for intervention. There was a recommendation to support this program to help support that program going forward. That's also very similar with the First Steps program. The First Steps program is also a program from Blue Earth County Human Services as well. And this is something to, with some of lack of funding, is to continue to support that. That's also a program that's from perinatal up to age 3 years old for what they're doing for support of that program. So with those 2 programs, the Parent Support Outreach Program is sometimes you may hear from Human Services called their PSOP program. That'd be up to $35,000 expenditure, and for First Steps would be for up to $15,000 for that. One of the things we talked about is that we'll look at this, and next year as we get through the budget process, we'll talk more with the group and we'll look at what funding looks like for those programs and determine if that's something that we'd be looking at coming back again, or if there's another way to get funding for those programs. The third option here that we have in here is from Hello World. This is a parenting, coaching, and education that's really done through their children's mental health and with child protection. Really, as it talks about, is for parent coaching to not only work with the youth that they're working with Human Services, but also working with those parents to help those with when it comes to mental health or potential child protection issues. That's for funding up to $25,000 as well for that program. The fourth item is with the Catalasso Group. This is a program that works for truancy intervention and mediation, and this would be up to $25,000. This is the first time that our county is looking at working with the Catalasso Group. They're a fairly new group the last couple of years that have been doing a lot of work in Scott County. And as our Human Services and Community Corrections and a little bit talking with their school district, they've had some really good success in truancy prevention and intervention. And that's something we've seen over years, and I think we've seen even more strongly over these last several years, we've seen that uptick in truancy. And so this is a way to start out this first year to see if this is a way that we can really break that cycle and work with those youth for truancy intervention and mediation. So those are the 4 items, total up to $100,000 for those 4. And at this time, I'd respectfully request that the approval of funding in the amount of $100,000 for those programs listed in this memo.
I'll move approval. This is good work, you guys.
Do we have a motion? Is there a
I'll second it. So,
Discussion?
good program.
Yeah, this is all positive. Thank you very much.
You know, and I just, one thing to share, I look at this group where we have with Pat, our county attorney, our Sheriff Jeff Wursel, we have Phil and Angie from Human Services, John Marsalic, and then also some other staff from the Sheriff's Department. It's really been great with this group because we keep hearing from this group, how do we keep working on intervention and for our youth? And that's, you know, when we look at what we're doing, I think that's a really exciting thing. We know we've also done some work to reestablish that canine unit, which I think is also a great thing, that we're looking at that enforcement side, but there's also this great of how do we work on youth intervention for our youngest children here in our community.
All right, are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you, Josh. We are to
Thanks,
item
Josh.
number 10 on our agenda, tab 10, administration. Mr. Meyer, please.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes for August 13th.
So move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. The minutes of August 13th are approved.
Next are the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
I'll move the bills.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. We ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The bills are approved.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 12 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. We do have one action item for the board's consideration today, and that has to do with the maintenance program that the board has supported in terms of working with DDA, our compensation and classification consultant, who has been retained to review roughly a third of our job descriptions annually so that we can maintain our classification and compensation system at an adequate level going forward. As you all are aware, we did back in 2022 go through kind of a major revamp of our classification system using the JET classification system. We also looked at our market, a market study to look at our compensation to make sure that we were competitive in the market. And so this maintenance effort really is designed to keep us in a competitive position and keep a system in place that meets our requirements under the Pay Equity Act. And so the consultant has worked with the departments in terms of looking at job descriptions from, again, about a third of our positions, focused mostly in the public safety arena, although it did pull in some other clerical level positions that cut across the county. The consultant did recommend then changes to, I believe, 11 positions, not people, but 11 positions that are listed on the memo. And on the third page, there is a full listing. All of those recommendations that are bolded on the third page are the positions that were recommended for an adjustment in their grade. All those grade adjustments were one level of increase. And so we're bringing these forward today for the board's consideration to approve it. These changes would be relatively effective immediately. It's a little change from what we've done in prior years, where many of these grade adjustments would have been made effective January 1st of the next year. As a part of this process, though, we felt that maybe having this board approval, I should have caught Laura beforehand this morning, but I think we want to try and make the date effective with the next pay period, just so it lines up and makes the administration of this a little bit cleaner. But really seeking board's approval today of those grade adjustments listed.
I will move approval.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion.
Budgeting, how's this gonna fit into our budgeting process, Bob?
Well, part of the change to make this implementation effective now, we can build it into the 25 budget. So, with the action today, we can have HR make those
Okay.
changes and build that into future budget runs.
Okay.
Other discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. They're approved.
All right, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 13 in your packet is a letter from the St. Paul Port Authority representing Old Town Holdings LLC. This
Yeah,
is,
can I interrupt about anything of note we need to know on the informational
I'm sorry.
report?
I'm sorry, I skipped right over that. Thank you. Yes, I'll just run through those really quickly. We have an employment of an on-call library clerk. We have initiated recruitment to fill a property and environmental resources specialist, one position that was vacated earlier this year. Then we filled a correctional officer in the jail, actually 2 positions there. Then we had completion of employment of our 911 telecommunicator, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill that position. We also had an increase in hours for a part-time correctional officer in the jail to a full-time position, and so we've initiated recruitment to fill that part-time position. Then we had a resignation of a care coordinator in our public health and waivered services area, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill that position. So again, I apologize for skipping over those, but I can answer any questions that the board might have there.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, number 13 in your packet is the letter from the St. Paul Port Authority, again representing Old Town Holdings LLC for a property assessed clean energy special assessment. This assessment amount is $1.5 million. The way PACE works is these requests get approved at the county level. It's a private financing option through the St. Paul Port Authority. The owners of the property then are assessed through our property tax systems, the theory being they will have savings through their energy use to pay those special assessments. So our role really is only as a middleman to establish the special assessment on their property tax and collect the funds and forward them to the St. Paul Port Authority. We've done these previously, not a lot of them, probably 4 or 5 in my time with the county, but it really is fairly painless for the county to participate in this program, and there's really no financial risk to the county. So bringing that forward for the board's consideration today.
Okay, you heard the recommendation.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second discussion.
So how much, I mean, I heard that it can't hurt us. How much does it benefit us?
Really what it is you're supporting private development in the community by not standing in the way of that property assessed clean energy option. And so it does promote clean energy, does reduce carbon emissions, so it helps the environment to have investments in clean energy as part of these new developments.
Okay, thank you.
I will tell you, I did ask some questions because I have not seen a 30-year amortization on these loans in the past. And I was informed that the 2024 legislature, I believe just this May, did change statute to allow up to 30 years. Prior to that, the limit had been 20 years.
Other discussion? So similar to, Blue Earth County is one of 15 or 18 counties in the rural Minnesota Energy Board with the PACE. Those are much smaller projects, but as you're looking at energy efficiencies and things like that, we participate in those as well on that joint powers. Are we ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. It is approved.
Item number 14 in your packet is a memorandum regarding a modification and amendment of a natural gas easement. Northern Natural Gas Company has and currently operates a 16-inch pipeline across the premises where the new Public Works facility will be built. And so this easement currently cuts across the southeast corner of that property, so it's not in the area where the county plans to build, but the easement was established many years ago, and it basically had the easement across the full 76 acres or whatever it is. And so we worked with Northern Natural Gas to try and restrict that easement to just a 90-foot wide strip of land centered on the pipeline. And so they've agreed to that. And so bringing forward for the board's consideration a modification amendment of that Northern Natural Gas easement.
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion. We're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. It is approved. Item number 11 on our agenda are commissioners' reports on committees. You know, I always was going to start a list so I could remember what last time and who I don't pick on and go for first.
I'd be happy to start, Mr. Chair. if
Would you
would
bail
like.
me out so I
I
don't
would.
pick the wrong person? Thank you.
I have a very short agenda here, so I had a couple work sessions that we all attended. A couple other community events that I visited over the last 2 weeks, and a lot of discussion about the ditch mowing that we got coming up for next year and the project we have going on that. Some drainage issues, and then of course a lot of discussion about the dam discussion that we're going to have today after the agenda was out. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mark, would you go next?
Okay, after, on August 6th, did have the Night to Unite, and then we did our department meeting on August the 7th, and a work session on 13th, and then the county, on our August 20th, did have another work session, and had a partners meeting on the 22nd of August. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Patty?
Okay, the work session on the 13th and the 20th, and August 15th, I had TBS and the canvassing board for the primary. And that's my report.
Yes.
Mine is equally as short. Obviously, the same work sessions as that everybody else was at. I had a discussion on the Rapidan Dam and the bridge with a interested party on the 15th. On the 21st, I had the MRCI company picnic. That was really kind of fun to go to. And that was the end of my report. Went to the state fair yesterday and got really hot.
Yeah, you did.
Thank you. I too participated in the work sessions on August 13th and 20th, and the canvassing board on the 15th. Also on the 14th, we had a PACE committee meeting. On the 16th, we had our annual Town and Rural Urban Express, the True Transit Joint Powers Board, where we've got our annual report and approved the budget. Participated in the fly-in breakfast on the 18th. On August 21st, we had 3 landowner meetings, CD 51, JD 20, and CD 91. Also attended the Lake Crystal Area Rec Center annual meeting, and yesterday participated in a NACO Ag Policy monthly call. That concludes my report. The next item would be to recess at 11:04. Is there a motion to recess?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. We are recessed.